Okay, so Paranormal Activity 3, it's been a long day. I haven't had much sleep last night. So I'm pretty tired right now, but you know, I thought I might as well do the review right now. Get it over with. Not that it's a chore or anything, but Paranormal Activity, like, you know, right off the bat, I'm just gonna say it. I'm not a fan of Paranormal Activity. I kind of hate this series, like, you know, like Final Destination. I really hate that series. I guess I hate Paranormal Activity just as much. You know, they're just both movie series which I flat out just don't like. You know, but I'll try and go, I'll try and be as fair as possible, because like obviously if you really hate a movie series with a passion, sometimes I can get, kind of get in your way. Like, so I try to watch this movie, like, with an open mind, like so when I'm reviewing this, I'm going to try and be fair as possible. So like I always do with sequels, I'm going to give my general thoughts as the series, on each film of the series. So for the first film, the first Paranormal Activity, well, surprised I didn't like it. Just nothing really happened. I just didn't like it. I found it, just boring. That's the key word here, boring. Nothing there really. I just didn't like it. Like I said, going back to when I just said nothing really happens, let's link this back to the Human Centipede 2 review. I don't think it's fair to say like nothing really happens, but like, if, like I said, a movie's plot, it might be really simple, but just because the plot is like simple, it doesn't automatically make the movie bad. No way in hell should that be used as an excuse for a movie being bad. It's just like down to whether or not you find the story interesting. Like I was interested in the story of the Human Centipede 1 and 2. Paranormal Activity 1, 2 and 3, not so much. Simple plots, nothing wrong with that. I just wasn't interested in it, Found footage movies, I'm okay, they're fine. Cloverfield Cloverfield, it was okay. I didn't mind it. It certainly wasn't great, nowhere near great. It was an okay movie. I didn't mind it. The Blair Witch Project, one of the more famous found footage movies, I haven't seen that yet. I hear very good things from it, and like I know what the movie, I know the gist of the movie, like I know what it's about. I haven't seen it yet though. Of course I'll get around to watching it eventually, and I am looking forward to it, and I'm hoping I'll like it. But yeah, so like found footage movies, I don't hate them. It's just whether or not it's a good movie in general. The found footage aspect doesn't really like affect my opinion on the movie. It's just whether or not I like the story, I guess, and how well done the directing and everything's done. So Paranormal Activity 1, I just wasn't a fan of it. I thought it was boring, wasn't interested in the story. Yeah, that's, pretty much it. Just boring. Like, I don't really have much to say. It's just, I just wasn't interested in the story. And the characters, or at least the boyfriend was. I'm not quite sure what his name was. I think it's Micah or Micah or Michael. I don't know. It was something like that. But he was really annoying. He was. I just found him to be a really annoying character. I know that's a common thing for people to think. Anyway, so that's the first film. Paranormal Activity 2, more of the same. Again, I didn't like it. I'll give him credit for like trying to up the ante. Trying to evolve, I guess you could say. Because in the second film, they had like multiple cameras, didn't they? Because like they had the security camera setup thing. They had a bunch of security cameras around the house. So now you get to see like every single room and the garden of the house. So, and also you get like the handheld segments where they're just walking around with a handheld camera recording stuff. So I'll give them credit for like not trying to make, like, in my opinion, it's pretty much the same movie the second film was. But I'll give him, like I said, I'll give him credit for trying something a little bit different. Although it didn't really affect the story was exactly the same. Kind of exactly the same. I'll give him credit for trying to make it a bit more interesting with the multiple camera setup. You know, I am trying to be like gentle on these movies because I really do hate them. You know, I'm trying not to piss off some, you know, die-hard Paranormal Activity fans here. This series, you know, it sure does have its fans. You know, a lot of people do like these movies, which is obviously, you know, which is obvious from the amount of money they make. So yeah, second film, you know, like I said, I just didn't like it. I did think that movie, while the first film, I can't recall any jump scares from the first film, aside from the very end. I didn't mind that jump scare though at the very end. I didn't, you know, that felt like it fit the context of the movie. You know, like jump scares in general, I hate them. They're just cheap ways to invoke you know, shock out of your viewer, I think. I don't really like jump scares. Well, actually, I don't mind them as long as they're not overused. But like when a jump scare does happen, I'm just like, so what? You made me jump, congratulations, you know? It's just, now what? It just didn't really, you know. But at the end of the first film, it did kind of feel right. But the second film, once again, I can't really remember any, I can't remember how often they used the jump scares. One moment in particular, I do remember, you know, the famous scene in the one of the famous scenes in the second film. You know, where the cupboard doors blow open and there's like a loud bang to make you jump. That scene did make me jump, but I felt as if it was a cheap scare. It was because it was just comes out of nowhere. There's not really any suspense or point to it. But I guess you could argue it kind of, you know, shows that the demon is getting more aggressive. I guess you could argue that. I don't know. I just felt it was really cheap. It didn't really need to be there. It was just like some really lame, cheap way of them to, you know, waking up the audience. Not literally, you know, but you know what I mean. Like grabbing your attention again. Again, the scares. I do think that it was, like I said, it's pretty much the exact same film. In my opinion, of course, everything's in my opinion, of course, in this video. But you know, it's stuff like when the girl gets dragged out of bed. It's the same thing as the first film, you know? Okay, maybe I'll accept that the girl getting dragged out of the bed was kind of like a homage or a tribute to the first film. Because, you know, that was a famous scene in the first film. And, you know, everybody always talks about that scene. In the second film, they could do it again. I guess you could, it's kind of like a tribute. Maybe I'll accept that. It was kind of like a tribute. You know, because it went on for a lot longer, so I guess they're going with, you know, bigger is better, because that went on for a lot longer in the second one. But yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's just them being lazy and being cheap, or I guess I could accept it being a tribute to the original. But yeah, none of the scares in the second film, I didn't really find any of them too creative or anything. I just found it, you know, boring, like I said. So, like, I just don't really have anything much to say. I'm not interested in the story. However, I will say, I did really like how the second film tied into the first film. I thought that was pretty creative. I did like that. You know, you have like the second film is a prequel. It explains like you know, it shows that they shifted the curse, you know, onto Katie, which is why she was being haunted in the first film. You know, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And I just kind of spoiled it vaguely. If you haven't seen it, but don't worry, kind of briefly just mentioned that, but I didn't like how it tied into the first film. That was good, you know, I was fine with that. Yeah, so that's what I thought about the first two movies. Didn't like them, whatever, you know, didn't really care, kind of hated them. You know, they just irritate me, I guess. Like Final Destination, they're just two movie series that irritate me. There's quite a lot of like movies in specific that irritate me, a movie series, like Avatar, I really hate that. Scream 4. I like the first three Scream films, even Scream 3. But Scream 4 just really pissed me off. And yeah, you know, I'm getting on another topic there, but let's go back to PA, you know, Paranormal Activity. I can't be bothered to say Paranormal Activity all the time, so I'm just going to say PA. Obviously an abbreviation, but yeah, so on to PA3. For those of you who don't know the story of PA3, it's a prequel to the second and first film. I can't remember when it takes place. I think it was in the 80s. I can't remember. I think it was in the 80s. But so the girl from PA1, oh Katie, yeah, of course that's her name. And then so the girl from PA1, Katie, and then the girl from PA2, I think she was called Chrissy. I can't remember, or Chris, yeah, Chrissy. I think that was what her name was. I'm just gonna call the girl from PA2 Chrissy. I think that's her name. Okay, so if I got it wrong, sorry, but yeah. So it revolves around those two, like, you know, the two girls. So it's the 80s. They're like little. I think it's the 80s. They're little kids, just going around the, you know, about the business. And I'm sure, so, of course, some paranormal activity goes on, and they're just haunted. And of course, we have the mother and father of the two girls. You know, they're the other characters. I can't remember their names, but yeah. So that's basically the story. It's kind of showing, or at least partially explaining, how the paranormal, you know, why they are being haunted. It's, you know, it partially explains why the demon is like haunting them, why it was haunting them to begin with. So, you know, this is a prequel. It partially explains some of it. They purposely left a lot of it open for the fourth film, which no doubt they'll make, I'm sure, because they're like, this ends on like a cliffhanger, with a few questions to be, you know, left open. So they're bound to make a fourth one. Well, why wouldn't they? These movies are cheap as hell to make. Like, it costs a few million, and then they rake in like 100 million in every film, or maybe not that much, but. Yeah, okay, let's actually review the movie now. I don't really have much to say about this movie. I don't think this is going to be that long. Like I said, I'm really tired. So like, I don't have as much passion, let's say, to do this review, because I'm pretty tired. Yeah, and in general, it's just the same as the first two films. Like, with Final Destination 5, I hate the series. I had a lot of topics to kind of attack there. I kind of had specific things to talk about, but for PA, I just found it boring. It's like, that's all I have to say. I don't care about the story. There you go. I just found it boring. Of course, I do have like a few things in particular to talk about here, so I'm just gonna go straight into them. I have a piece of paper back here for some notes. Okay, so I know a lot of people, not a lot, I'm not quite sure actually. I think quite a lot of people, a lot of people kind of complain about this. Is like, it's quite a common complaint. I think it's just the simple question: why are the characters recording what they record? In the third film, this is kind of going back to the first two films, because a lot of the time in the first two films, that was kind of bugging me. In the third film, it didn't bug me as much. Well, actually, it's the same for all three films, because at the start, the characters are recording random stuff. Like, before anything paranormal happens, they just record random stuff. Like, some of the stuff just doesn't make sense. Like, in the third film, at the start, Katie, and she's like bringing a bunch of VHS tapes over to, I think, Chrissy. I think it was the guys from the second film. Like, Katie's bringing over a bunch of VHS tapes. I'm sorry, I can't say that fast, but it's kind of like a tongue twister for me. So she's bringing a box of VHS tapes to the guys from the second film, I think. And someone, I can't remember who, it might have been Katie, I don't know. Someone's recording her giving the box to them. And it's just like, why? It's not as if there's someone in the bushes like recording them. I'm saying like there's, you know, one of the characters are just standing there recording it. And it's just like, why are you recording this? This just doesn't make sense. So that kind of bugged me. As, you know, when they just record stuff and it's like no purpose. And then when we get to the past, for the first, you know, when Katie and Chrissy were kids, when we get to that, again at the start, it just didn't make sense as to why they were recording stuff. When the paranormal stuff happens, like, I understand then, because obviously, you know, they're trying to catch any weird stuff on tape. But at the very start, it just doesn't make any sense, and it does annoy me. I find it pretty annoying. I understand why the guy recorded one of the girls. You know, they're missing their teeth. Like, they've just lost like their first few teeth. So yeah, that's understandable. I get why you would record that, but there's quite a bit of stuff there which just doesn't make sense, and I just kind of found it a bit irritating. So that's like one complaint. There's one topic done. Next on the list. Oh yeah, I'm not quite sure if anybody else, again going back to the same topic, why are you recording this? Because at this one point, this is the first, if I remember right, this is the first time ever in the movie anything strange happens. The first time anything ever strange happens in the movie. The guy, he makes wedding videos, so you know, he's recording a bunch of still frames of wedding photos. I guess he's going to incorporate that into the footage of the wedding video somehow, but he's just recording it and then he hears like a noise coming from like upstairs or, I don't know, a room somewhere. So he grabs the camera and goes to investigate. I just didn't buy it, I just didn't buy it. Like, personally, I didn't think it was really... No, I just didn't buy into it, you know, him grabbing the camera to investigate the noise and recording it. Like, this is the first time anything strange ever happened, so he just assumes it's Katie or Chrissy just messing around. So he, like, you know, he goes around, has a little luck with the camera. It just doesn't make much sense to me, that part. That was kind of irritating. Yeah, so this is set in the 80s, I think, and this is, you know, this just didn't bother me. I'm not sure if it bothered a lot of people, but personally, I was like, man, you know, I didn't mind. But it's the question, well, not quite question, it's a plot hole. It's like, so back in the 80s, apparently, handheld camcorders could shoot in HD, or at least the quality is pretty damn good. You know, available to the public. These cameras are available to the public. The quality is pretty damn good, HD, and not only that, it's in widescreen. That's kind of weird for the 80s, ain't it? Like, obviously, I'm being sarcastic here, but I didn't mind that. I know that bothered a few people, but personally, I just think you know, I was okay with that. Whatever. Like, obviously, they didn't actually have it in, like, not in widescreen or HD. Like, if they did really shitty quality, you know, a lot of people would be pissed off at that. You know, so, yeah. You know, it's like most of the people wouldn't watch it. Some people wouldn't watch it purely because of the quality then, you know. So I do understand why they put it in widescreen, but I'm saying it didn't bother me that it was in widescreen and set in the 80s anyway, so whatever, I didn't mind. So, here's another thing I'd like to talk about. Katie, I think, yeah, I'm sure it was Katie, it wasn't Chrissy, I don't think, but Katie, she has an imaginary friend. It's one of those, like, you know, situations which, you know, happens in so many movies, the imaginary friend thing. You know, I just hated the way they did it in this film. I hated it. It was really generic and cliche. They didn't do anything new. Like I say, being cliche, it's not a bad thing. Just do it right. It just didn't feel as if they did it right in this film, in my opinion. I thought it was just really cheesy and just really dry. The way they did it, it just felt really dry as well. It's just as if they didn't even try. It just felt so, yeah, just dry. I just didn't think they did it too well, to be honest. And because, like, you know, you get those really dry, but like just so generic at the same time moments where, like, the girl gets out of bed and starts talking to Toby, which is the name of her imaginary friend, and she just goes like, "No, I don't want to do that. Why do you want me to do that? No, I'm not doing that." She just says stuff like that. So, you know, you're hearing her part of the conversation, obviously, and then you're missing the other half. I was just really irritated by it, because, I don't know, it just didn't feel as if they did it right. What she was saying is just, you know, I just didn't like it. I was really irritated by it. It just felt a bit dry, like I said. I said that like a million times, but I just didn't like it. But yeah, the imaginary friend whole thing, just really hated it. On a side note to the imaginary friend thing, when the Toby picks up the girl by the hair, that's pretty humorous. I thought that's kind of funny. Like, obviously it was supposed to be scary, but it was just one of those unintentionally funny parts. And let's go to the jump scares. This film had a few of them, and at least 3 of them, like, without thinking too hard, what comes to my head, like, instantly, like within the blink of an eye, would be I can count a total of 3 really cheap jump scares which really annoyed me. You know, this when the babysitter, she like jumps in front of the camera and just goes boo. That's a really cheap jump scare. I really hate jump scares anyway. Well, at least the really cheap ones, they're even worse. So, you know, you have like the false ones, you know, when someone jumps in front of the camera, or someone is playing a prank on someone else and they jump out of the closet, you know, to scare them. Stuff like that, I really, you know, it just really pisses me off. Actually, this movie didn't make, on a side note, this movie didn't make me jump a single time, but at the same time I was really tired anyway, so maybe that's why. Like, I was too tired to be, you know, really, you know, be affected by the jump scares, I guess. And you know how in the second film, I think I mentioned this earlier, where the closet, not the cupboard doors, like blew open and it's like a loud bang. You know, that's like one of the famous scenes from the second film, PA2. That did make me jump when I watched PA2. In PA3 they do like a really similar thing. Except, yeah, it's just like a loud bang. It's just a bunch of household items do something. I'm not going to say what, you know, for spoilers sake, so you can't tell when it's going to happen. Not that you would be able to tell when it's going to happen anyway, but basically it's not cupboard doors, something else. It's a different object, a set of objects in the house instead. But it's pretty much the exact same jump scare, and again it's a really cheap jump scare. Just like, the moments that just don't lead up to anything. They're just random moments just there to make the audience jump, and they don't lead up to anything or anything. It's just really unnecessary. Just, you know, I just really hate those sort of jump scares. Yeah, again, going back to recycled scares, like the second, PA2 had 1 or 2 of them. This film recycles a lot of scares, I thought, you know, all in my opinion, of course. But of course they have the swinging door, you know, wow, a door opens. There you go, there's your recycled scare. Again, you know how in Katie in the first film, I don't think they did this in PA2, but in PA1 they definitely did it. You know, at one point during the night, Katie, she stands up. She gets out of bed and just stands up, and then she just stares at Mika or Micah, whatever, sleeping, and she just stares at him, sleeping for like, I think it's a few hours actually, I can't remember, I think it's a few hours, but you know how she just stands there and just stares at him, sleeping for a few hours? They do the exact same thing in this film. Except, yeah, it's Katie again, I don't think it was Chrissy. Katie, she gets out of bed, she walks over to her parents' room, stands in the doorway, and then she stands, like, I do remember taking note of the time there, like a mental note. I was like 90 minutes. You know, like it goes into fast forward motion, and you can look at the timer in the corner to see how long she stands there for. But yeah, so she walks over to the parents' room, stands still looking at him for 90 minutes, and then goes back to bed. Same exact. Whether or not you want to call it a scare, I'm not sure, but it's the exact same thing, you know, that they did in the first film. I just thought it was, you know, they just recycled a lot of stuff like that, you know. You get the rumbling noises, well, no, they're just weird noises like around the house. You get that going on again, which is really, you know, I just feel as if they're getting a bit lazy, really lazy with the recycled scares, you know. It's just, I feel as if they're running out of ideas, you know. And it's the third film already. Okay, next topic. You know how I said for the second film they kind of did something different? The story is like pretty much exactly the same, but they kind of made it more interesting. That's what I'm going to say. It's not that they made the story, it doesn't make the story different in any way. It just makes it more interesting to us, the viewer. How they had multiple cameras. It's not so much the fact that it's a bunch of security cameras, it's so much the fact that it's just multiple cameras, you know. So in the first film you just have one handheld camera. Second film there's multiple cameras, and then you have the handheld camera as well, which you know, you're jumping back and forth between all of them. You know, so for PA2 it wasn't so much, it's not the fact that they are security cameras, it's the fact that there's multiple cameras, which is interesting. For the third film, this time there's a bunch of like handheld cameras like scattered all the way throughout the house. Like he sets one up in the kitchen and living room, that's one camera. I'll get to that later, but he sets one up into his, you know, in the parents' bedroom. There's one in the kids' bedroom. And then you get a third one. I'll get into the third camera later, but so once again there's multiple cameras. This time it's not security cameras, it's just normal handheld cameras which they position around the house. So, you know, I'm not gonna, no way in hell am I gonna accept that as something different. The fact that, you know, security cameras and handheld cameras, it's the same thing, it's just multiple cameras. So, you know, I don't want anyone trying to convince me that that's something different. It's not, it's just multiple cameras. Because like I said, PA2, the interesting thing isn't the fact that they are security cameras. The interesting thing is that there's multiple cameras. Third film, multiple cameras, not security cameras, just handheld cameras. It's still the same thing, it's not something different. However, let's go into what is kind of different. So for the third camera, they place it on like a rotating fan. Like the fan, it keeps going like that, like sways back and forth. Like the guy, he like, his friend Randy, I'll get into him later, but he kind of modifies like a fan. So it's got one blade sticking out and then he sits the camera on top. So then it swings back and forth. Like he's kind of got it like in the doorway which kind of connects the kitchen and the living room. So it sways back and forth like that. So it's like living room, kitchen, living room, kitchen. You know, it just keeps swinging back and forth. So you can see both rooms. And, you know, so they kind of have like a scale there. So, oh yeah, so about different. I guess it's kind of different, the fact that they're doing that. So it kind of makes it a bit more interesting, but I don't know. I will accept it as like something different. It made it a bit more interesting, but it wasn't much of a change, or it wasn't really that innovative, which really made me, you know, go, Like, don't get me wrong, it was like a pretty cool idea, but it's not as if, in my opinion, it just didn't feel like it was a change which was big enough to warrant like a lot of credit. Like it is a good idea, but it's a great idea, I think, but it just wasn't big enough for me to really think it was something hugely like different or interesting. So whatever. And again, they had a few opportunities for some good scares, but they really only did 3 scares with that, going like that. They really only did 3 scares on that camera swaying back and forth, and the one scare could have been done on a normal stationary camera. So I feel as if they missed out on some opportunities to do some cool stuff with that. Because like I said, the ones one of the 3 scares they did wouldn't be any different if they did it on a normal stationary camera anyway. So at the end of the day, it kind of felt pointless with that. And I'm not counting the girl running around the house to be a scare. You know, that didn't really matter. Like that could be done on a stationary camera as well, but I'm not counting that as a scare. I'm counting the, you know, the really loud jump scare. You know, the one they're trying to imitate from the second film. But yeah, I did kind of, you know, again, trying not to give spoilers. The ghost scare, you know, the sheet, the cloth. I kind of liked that. Like it wasn't, you know, if I classify that as a scare. It didn't creep me out or anything. Like none of the films have creeped me out ever or anything. But I did like it. It didn't make me go, you know, what's going to happen next, you know. It did kind of get me interested there. I was kind of wondering what you know, what the payoff was going to be. And I did like the payoff. The payoff was fine. I thought it was a pretty good scene. I did like it. So I will give him credit for that. And the only other scare, actually, okay, I'd say there's 3 scares in the whole entire film which I kind of liked. So the one was the sheet of cloth one. I really liked that one. The second one, oh, you know, hang on, I can't remember what the second one was now. Second one, so we have the ghost one, don't we? I already mentioned that. My mind has just gone entirely blank. Hopefully it'll come back to me later, but let's talk about the characters here. Brandy, okay, let's actually, alright, so we have the mother and the father. I thought the mother was pretty damn annoying, to be honest. thankfully she's not really a main character. She only appears every now and again. Like the film more focuses on the kids and the father. The mother really isn't that much of an important character. She doesn't appear much. Like she appears at the start of the film for like 20 minutes. And then she appears throughout the film every now and again. She's just not really a main character at all. She just appears every now and again. So thank God for that, because she was really annoying, a really annoying character in my opinion, for the like first 10 or 20 minutes. So I'm glad she didn't become the focus. But the father didn't really care whatever. He was there. I wasn't really bothered about him. But I do feel as if he's the exact same character as Micah or Micah, whatever, from the first film. In PA1, like he kept recording stuff. And then the wife was just like, oh, stop recording here, you're just going to make the spirit more angry. She keeps saying stuff like that. And Mika's just like, oh, no, we've got to record this stuff, He records it anyway. And he's just really stubborn, he just doesn't care. He just wants to keep provoking the demon constantly. That's basically exactly the same in PA3. I don't know his name, but the father character in PA3, he just does the exact same thing. The wife is constantly telling him, oh, just pull the camera away, you're just making the spirit more angry. You and your bloody ghost stuff. She's constantly going stuff like that. Just like Katie was in the first one. And then the guy in PA3, he's just like, oh, no, we got to record this. There's some strange stuff's happening. It's as if they copy and pasted his lines, Mika's lines from the first film, into the third film. It's the exact same character, I think they were kind of lazy with that. Okay, so I'll talk about that later. The other character, which is worth mentioning, is Randy. He's like the father's friend, but I did like him. I don't know, I can't really explain why. It's just one of those characters. It's just the way they talk, and the actor and stuff. I didn't like that character. He was fun to watch. I thought he was a great character. I liked him. Randy, the father's friend. That's really all I have to say. I just like that character. The acting in the film was fine. No, or actually all three films, they can't have fine acting, Nothing's amazing, but it's not bad either. It's fine, I didn't really mind. I don't really care about acting anyway, as I always say. I just remembered the other scare I really liked, the Bloody Mary scene. And let's, I only watched one trailer, because I wasn't really interested in this film. I knew I was going to watch it at some point. I just wasn't hyped for it though, because obviously I hated the first two films, so I kind of expected myself to hate this one, which I do. But the other scare, let's talk about the trailer. So the only trailer I watched was the Bloody Mary one. That's kind of, the famous one, where the two girls are in the bathroom, they do the Bloody Mary thing, say 3 times in a mirror. So that's the other scare I liked. And of course the scene is entirely different in the actual movie. Instead of the two girls doing it, we have the Randy and one of the girls doing it instead. Like I said, I've only seen that one trailer, but apparently I've heard a lot of people mention this, but all the other trailers have they show a bunch of scares, and a lot of people were pissed off that they spoiled a lot of stuff. But apparently everything in the trailer, I'm not quite sure if people are exaggerating when they say this, because I haven't seen the trailer, so I can't say for myself. But apparently every single scene you see in a trailer, it's not in the actual movie. So it's kind of like Black Christmas, the Black Christmas remake trailer, except I think some of that trailer was in the movie. I can't remember, but I know a lot of the trailer wasn't in the movie. So it's kind of like what they did for the Black Christmas remake. And yes, I am aware that the Black Christmas remake trailer and PA3 trailer, I know they are not the only movies that have trailers, footage specifically shot for the trailer. I'm aware of that. I'm just giving another example. So, that's kind of good for the marketing. I really hate it when movies show too much in the trailers. I think every single Saw movie showed way too much in the trailer. I figured, you could figure out half the movie, if not 3/4 of the movie, just from watching the trailer. So that's nice for them to market the movie like that. But yet again, there's some people they're pissed off because they're like, oh, I was so looking forward to that scare in the movie. So, you know, they're really angry, or at least, you know, a bit irritated that the scare wasn't in the movie. You know, because some people are like, oh, that looked like a really cool scare, and then they're kind of disappointed it's not in the actual movie. Personally, you know, I would prefer for the footage not to be in the actual movie, so it's done well in like that regard. But yeah, so the Bloody Mary scene, I thought it was done well. But the thing is, I'm not quite sure why, if I liked it for the right reason. I'm not, because like, I was waiting for the jump scare, you know, the loud bang. And I was just like sitting there anticipating the loud bang. Like I was waiting, I was like bracing myself, waiting to jump. You know, bracing, you know, for the impact of the loud bang. You know what I'm saying. I'm not quite sure if it was a jump scare. It didn't make me jump. There was kind of like a rumble, a loud bang, kind of. I'm not quite sure if it was supposed to be a jump scare because I didn't jump. Like I said, I was really tired. So I'm not sure if it was supposed to be a jump scare because I kind of sat there. It literally didn't faze me or make me flinch or anything. So I was kind of wondering if it was actually meant to be a jump scare. So if it wasn't supposed to be a jump scare, I would like to give the scene more credit. But if it was supposed to be a jump scare, I would like to take away some credit because I hate jump scares. They're just lame, cheap ways to surprise the audience, in my opinion. So whether or not I should give the scene more credit or less credit, I don't know, because like I said, I'm having trouble trying to figure out if that was supposed to be a jump scare. But whatever, you know. I did like the scene. You know, having said that, I'm unsure of how much credit I should give it, because I'm not sure if it had a jump scare in it or not. But yeah, I did think it was a well done scene, and the payoff was kind of cool. Not the rumbling door thing and the moving furniture. You know, once again, that's taken right from the other two films. The scare is just like recycled as hell. But I'm talking about the payoff before the rumbling door. You know, when they turned the lights back on, that payoff, I did like it. I thought that was good. The other scare I liked, it's kind of getting into spoilers there, so I can't really talk about that scare. So I'm going to say that at the end. Yeah, okay, so I only have, this is coming to the end of the review here. I only have one more thing to talk about. You know, one more topic to talk about, which is, this is light spoilers here. Like, I'm not revealing the fate of the characters or anything, but it is pretty obvious what the fate of the characters are. It's a prequel. So, but, okay, these are light spoilers here. About the origins of why they're being haunted. It involves, I'm not sure if okay, leave the video now if you don't want spoilers. It's going to be light spoilers by here, but leave the video now if you don't even want light spoilers, okay? Okay, I'm going to say it now, so you better have left the video if you don't want light spoilers. But basically it reveals that why they're being haunted by the demons, Katie and Chrissy. It involves a cult. You know, so there's the light spoiler. A cult is involved in the movie, but it's not too hard to figure out where the movie goes from there. So the reason Katie and Chrissy are being tormented by, you know, these demons is because it involves a cult. So I know some people hated the direction. Like, some people liked the idea of a cult being, you know, the reason why they're being haunted. A lot of people like that direction, while a lot of other people really hated it. I know, like, people are kind of split there of that, you know, of the decision to have a cult involved in the PA movies. Personally, I didn't really care, you know, like, I was really tired at this point. I just didn't care, you know. Like, it's kind of like a little twist in the story, but I was just like, so what? I really don't care, you know. So I don't really have an opinion on that. I wasn't bothered, you know. I'm not interested in the story of the PA movies. I was just like, yeah, okay, I'll just go with it, you know. I just accepted it, didn't care, whatever. So I don't really have an opinion on that, just whatever. I'm neutral, let's say, about that. Okay, so there you go. I'm going into a bit more heavy spoilers. I'm not going to spoil the fate of any characters or anything like that, but if you want to leave, I'm basically going to ruin a scare. towards the end of the movie. I'm going to vaguely describe it, so leave if you don't want that spoiled. Okay, so one scare which kind of, this kind of startled me. You know when the guy walks around and then he sees the members of the cult like just standing there in front of him. You know, like in the last 15 minutes of the movie when the guy's walking around and then he sees the members of the cult kind of gathered. That kind of startled me. I thought that was slightly creepy maybe. You know, that's as close as the film has ever come to making me think, oh, that's kind of creepy. But even then, I'm just saying, it barely made me think, oh, that's kind of creepy. But even then, that's kind of creepy thing. So it's not as if that was much of an achievement. But yeah, okay, so, you know, I try to be, that's basically everything I have to say about PA3. I try to be as gentle as possible. You know, rather than like raging and, you know, raging at the camera at how much I hated the movie. I try to be a bit more light. Although I might have, you know, I gave it a bit of praise. You know, I'm trying to be as fair as possible because I'm kind of paranoid that my hate for the series has kind of affected my opinion on the first film. I can't, you know, so I try to give a fair review there. I just, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just not really interested in the story. So there you go, I'm just not that interested in the story. This series, it certainly has its fans. Whether or not you should watch the third movie, it just depends whether or not you like the first two. If you didn't like the first two, stay far away from the third film. No way in hell will you like the third film if you didn't like the first two. It's just the same thing, you know, same film. So yeah, there you go. I liked Randy. The characters were copy and pasted from the first film. The way this tied into the first two films, I just didn't really care. Like it didn't tie into the first two films. It did in the sense that Chrissy and Katie were there, but it was just explaining how the characters, why the characters are being haunted by the demons. That's all it did. Like it didn't tie into the first two films. It just explained why they're being haunted. That's all. You know. So it's not just because I didn't like how this PA2 tied into the first film. For the third film, it didn't tie into the other films, aside from having the characters, Chrissy and Katie. So yeah, just boring. I hate the movie. You know, I have tried to be gentle with this, not to piss off any PA fans. I just didn't like it. Not interested in the story. So yeah, and a lot of the scares were recycled. Although it had 3 good scares. That's all I have to say. No idea what my next movie review is going to be. I'm pretty damn tired, so I kind of want to go to bed. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Paranormal Activity 3. Thanks for watching. Bye.